Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. There's a line that caught my eye on LinkedIn, which read, AML is a board-level topic, not compliance, not back office, board. This feels more of a provocative challenge than a current statement of fact. But under the EU's incoming AMLR, that might be set to change with one person in management personally taking on the role of compliance manager. So, are most boards ready for that change? I'm your host Marit, CEO of Strise, and in this episode we are asking, what does the board actually need to know about AML? We will be discussing how AML has traditionally been a board-level blind spot, how upcoming regulation might change that, and what a boardroom conversation about AML should actually look like. And to dive into this topic, I'm delighted to be joined by two guests. Returning guest Viveka Strangert, professional board member at Loomis, Alecta, Fidelio Capital, Ikano Bank, and others. She also has a background as chief compliance officer and an AML governance expert. And laundry first-timer, Olli Kiuru, partner, Waselius attorneys from Finland. So welcome to the podcast, both of you. Excited to dive into this topic. You both have different professional experiences to bring to this topic, so let's just get into it. I think we should start by looking at AML as a boardroom blind spot and why it hasn't been traditionally been a boardroom topic. And Viveka, on the show in 2024, it's been a while, you said live on stage that, Viveka, let's just start by why AML has not traditionally been a boardroom topic. What is your theory?
First of all, I think that the supervisory authorities has not been on the topic that much, and therefore it hasn't been the limelight on this item. But then since, 10 years ago, the supervisory authorities issued a lot of sanctions, both internationally and from my perspective also in Sweden. So that's when the attention came there, and the sanctions were rather high, and you also lost a lot of reputation, and it was a lot of media on it. So I think a lot of boards woke up by then. So that's one explanation. And the other is that even small, tiny details where you have gaps in your AML implementation, that could cause really serious issues like sanction screening or things like that. And that's hard to understand. It's very much into the details, and you need to be a subject matter expert to understand what a tiny thing, what type of consequences that can have on the processes and on the controls. So I think that's another explanation, my thoughts.
And you sit on quite a lot of boards within the financial service industry. Has the tone shifted in just say the last couple of years? Do you see a big change, or do you still feel like, okay, AML is still, like you said, it's you need to be on the details, so it's not necessarily that easy to get into it, so it's more like just a compliance exercise that you sign off on the board, like checkbox, okay, we looked at it, move on.
I can only say things about the boards where I am on, and there is a lot of focus on these issues. And also another shift is going from mainly compliance, that you do all the things you're expected to do due to AML regulation, and then looking into, are we actually a tool to launder money? Are we used by criminals? And that's a type of discussion that also has been on the table much more the recent 3 years or so, because there has been laundry cases that has been discussed in media and discussed on the board level as well, both when laundering has been the case in the actual organization and when other companies have been hit, because it's sort of all types of industries are used, and for banks it's small and big, and it's no one is free of this. So okay. I think that's it really gets more into your gut feeling. You don't want to help criminals, But previously it might have been okay to not follow every single regulation, but you don't want to help criminals.
Okay, so you feel the conversation kind of have moved on from just being like compliance to actually having a board level discussion, like are we being used as a tool? That's very interesting. And Olli, you sit on also boards and you act as a voice of AML in many boardrooms. What do you think like good board level engagement with AML look like in practice? What do you see as like, okay, I think this is like the level it should be at versus just like checkbox compliance?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I need to say also the same, a little bit echoing what Viveka just said. So it's the legislation, as we know the legislation right now, it's quite young. And for example, before 2020, I would say that at least in Finland, so the level of knowledge within the boardrooms was almost inextent. So they didn't have the knowledge, the board members at that time, and at the same time it was not supervised neither. So it wasn't that important topic. So it was more like a back office exercise at that time. But now, through the massive new legislation that it's coming that has been coming from the European Union and is now coming through the new EU package, so it's becoming more and more important. At the same time, as Viveka said, so the companies also are very keen on to knowing really what their who their customers are, and they don't want to have the customers that are doing some criminal things in their businesses. So they are more precise on what they want to have, who they want to have as a client, and also at the same time, yes, the supervisory sanctions and inspections is definitely one thing. I'm sitting as a chairman for one bank as well. So and what we do see there is that we need to be, as board members and as a chairman, we need to be very precise that we don't get in the penalties from the inspection, because the owners don't like that. At the same time, not just AML but the sanctions, which is very closely tied to the AML still. I do have another theory for that, but still the sanctions regime is also including the personal criminal procedures for the board members. So you don't want to fly with your family to United States and be taken by the police there, and the rest of the family goes for Disneyland. So that's pretty much also the personal liability that is extremely important to think about. Therefore, I do think that the good, back to your original question, so yes, the AML needs to be in every board meeting somehow present, and also through the AI, so it must be there in the center.
Yeah. And I mean, Viveka, you got quite of a unique perspective on the failures of the board on AML. I mean, you were the chief compliance officer and you reported an audit of Swedbank's Baltic business showing like severe AML deficiencies. You reported this directly to the board and the CEO in 2016. And we, of course, all know the Swedbank scandal. And then when you left, you said also that no one from the board actually called you to ask what had happened. So, I mean, your perspective on like AML discussions in the board is quite unique, but what do you think that now with this experience makes you like a good board member, bringing in that AML perspective? What are like the questions and the topics you raise, and like what's the level of detail that you want to see now in the board? Like paint me that picture.
Well, first of all, the regulation has actually changed since I was heading compliance at Swedbank. So now the board needs to be informed about the reason for. So that's good. Not only the CRO but also the compliance officer. So I think that's very good. But what I do is when I am chairing a board, or if I'm chairing the the Risk and Compliance Committee or Audit Committee, I always ensure that I have one-on-ones with all the control functions and also the person that is responsible for AML in first line. So I get that before the meeting. So it's more, we don't have any minutes or any agenda, we just talk for 30 minutes or so. And that, first of all, that gives the individual an opportunity to raise issues and concerns without being so really formalistic. And you don't, it can be just a concern, a gut feeling that they have, and we can discuss it. So that's good, and it's good for me, and it also gives that person a forum where they know that they have my phone number, they can call me if they have a concern, and it doesn't mean that they have to report it formally. Of course, some things must be reported in the board and in the committees, but sometimes you just want to discuss something. And we, without getting too operational, as a board member, I need to have the strategic perspective and steer and all of that, without making violence on the governance structure. For me, that's really giving me comfort. And also, I'm a little bit lazy. When you get these 800 pages to read, it's really good to get the direction from the head of compliance that these are the things you really need to focus on, and the rest is just sort of repeating what I've said before. So that's also, for me, good. but I think that's to have that possibility to raise concerns without making it like a formal statement. And sometimes we can discuss, well, this really needs to be in the report, so we have it documented properly.
And additionally, if I may comment on that, so I do think that it's crucial that you do have the key function holders coming to each of the meetings, including AML officer or compliance, whoever that is, that the reliable person is. And also that is, of course, to get the information directly, but also to show for that key person that, yes, we think that your work is important. And I want always to show the message to the person that, yes, it's really critical, the work that you're doing, and we respect that very much, and you are a key position holder for this company, because that person then does the work better, in my opinion. At the same time, she takes the message further downwards, so that the culture will be changing, because none of us can be there in first line checking all of the KYC information and everything and doing the real work. We need the whole organization to feel that this is really important and for the firm in order to succeed.
So Olli, I mean Viveka, she has one-to-ones with some of these key functions. Do you have any other tips to other board members who, in terms of like making sure that they're on top of AML? Is there anything that you do that you want to share that's a good tip to bring forward? Or maybe even a good tip to the MLROs and the key function holders?
Yes, what we do for not in the bank where I'm the chairman, but for the everyday work that we do with firms, and also as a external compliance officer and also in charge for the AML issues. So we try to engage the members of the board also to come along and listen to the regulatory change reports that we prepare for the operational management. And I think that is critical, and we have been succeeding also with some firms in that we get the board members also to listen what is coming up in the legislation, and so that we get their knowledge lots higher, and that has been a good story in my opinion. At the same time, sometimes, to be very honest, sometimes you just need to change the directors if they are not like really willing to learn something new, because something not anymore, but I used to see in some boards that the persons that were there were not anymore up to date. They were not fit and proper in respect of AML and sanctions regime. So then you just make a collective fit and proper analysis of the board of directors, and then your conclusion might be that yes, we need to do something on this and this person.
Well, that is also a good tip. If your board members don't respect AML and the severity of breaching the legislation, just get new ones who are. All right, we'll be right back to talk about how boardroom blindness might change and how we can go about bringing compliance into the boardroom. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to The Laundry. A reminder that all Laundry hosts are active on LinkedIn. Drop us a message if you want to discuss today's episode. We've talked about the boardroom, and now let's talk about some of the upcoming changes that will happen, specifically now with AMLR coming next year. So right now, most banks and financial firms have a chief compliance officer or MLRO who handles AML day to day, and the board mostly signs off on reports, but signs off on reports. But AMLR is making some big changes. One member of the management body has to be formally appointed compliance manager with dedicated AML responsibility, but who that is depends on the jurisdiction's governance structure. So in a two-tier system like Sweden, that likely has to be the CEO sitting on the executive side, not a member of the non-executive board. So, but although one person holds that formal role, the whole board can still be held responsible if things go wrong. And regulators have said they'll look at how the board behaved collectively, not just who had the title on paper. Question to you both. Does this new upcoming legislation feel like a significant shift, or do you think it's just continuation of what it is now? What do you think, Viveka?
It's actually the same as it is today, so it's no difference. We still have a personal responsibility as board members, and that even though it has never been used in Sweden, you can have be fined up to 5 million euros, so it's quite an amount if you do things consciously or without, or being very, very neglective. So I would say it's not a difference, but the regulations are tougher and there are more details that should be fulfilled and complied with. So I mean, the bar has been raised of what you're expected to do. So in that case, it's a bit harsher than it has been.
Do you think it will be less attractive to be on a financial services board with the new upcoming legislation, or?
No, I don't think so. I think it's strict enough now, and also for board members, what you really are afraid of, it's media and bad reputation, and then not being able to manage your fit and proper test for your next board if you're found to do really bad things. So I don't think there's that much of a difference.
Olli,
Yeah,
what do you think
same
about
here.
The upcoming AMLR specific changes?
Same here. I think that it's no dramatical change. Those requirements have been already being there for FinFSA's guidelines, for example. So it's no change. The only change probably that comes is this is just like hypothetical. I know nobody knows it yet, but I do think that once they are implemented on the European Union level regulation, namely regulation, this gives a huge weapon for AMLR, the new authority, and it's very precisely there. They will also provide some lower level guidelines and specifically addressing things that the board cannot do or needs to do, and if you are breaching that gives them a quite powerful weapon to act against those organizations that do not comply. So in that sense, it might be a change. And also, I truly think that centralizing that gives also or leads to centralized fines as well, meaning and I don't think that there will be that the level will be lower, but I think that it will be higher. So that's a kind of centralized thing that gives the authorities more power in that sense.
And another thing with AMLA is that they will supervise the local supervisors. So I think like the Swedish FSA and other supervisory authorities in other industries, they feel the pressure, that's for sure. And we can see that on the supervisors on auditors and on lawyers, etc. They are really tough, getting more and more tough. So I think that will have an impact as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. And just thinking about AMLR, everything else that comes with it, how in the boardroom, how much do you guys talk about that the firm is ready for AMLR, like maybe implementing? Is it like now more a timing that more firms are looking to purchase, adopt, buy new software to make sure they also comply with AMLR? And it's not just like AMLR right now, it's AI and AMLR coming like at the same time. So it's both like a lot of opportunities to modernize, it's a lot of uncertainty, it's just everything all at once. Like what are you guys discussing in terms of AI, software, new projects, IT modernization in relation to AML in the boardroom? I don't know if you do, but it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I can start here. So yes, since the resources for AML is in the hands of the board, and the board is in charge for that, and also liable if that's not working within the organization. So having said that, it means for me that basically every single board meeting you need to discuss that are the resources sufficient. That includes for the first the persons that we do have working for that, but at the same time the technologies, softwares, and also the testing systems. And also what we have been or I've been experiencing is that it's even more critical that you think a little bit as a board member, a little bit outside the box, and try to figure out what the criminals would do, and once figuring out the possibilities that they might have, put some resources on that. That might be that you need to have external monitoring action, for example, that might mean that you need to have new software prohibiting something or helping your systems to survive, whatever that is. But you need to think about a little bit from the broader perspective and think about the resources that you do have and put the effort on that.
Yes, it's heavily discussed, and the cost of being compliant and following your customers in what they're doing is just not a possibility. It's not an option to do it in a manual manner. You need the technology, and the technology is being developed externally and of course internally as well. But what I see is new with the AMLR is that when you talk about the ODD, and it's very specifically less focus on the transaction monitoring and more focus on board things that happen in the company. So if they change the UBOs, or if they change what they're doing, or if they change their turnaround, or things like that. That's even more important to keep track on, and that's harder to keep track on than the transactions, because there you can have the scenarios. Of course, they're not perfect, but banks are used to keeping track on transaction monitoring. But the other parts, needs really to be developed, and I think most banks have gaps there.
Also, how do you guys, what's the discussion like in the boardroom when it comes to this? I mean, like compliance and AML, it's kind of like being risk averse. We need to make sure we comply, that we have our controls, and you know, the cost of it like has increased for so many years, and you know, you want to, maybe you do want to make sure that humans look at it as well. You want to spend on it because you're like, okay, let's make sure it's really solid, versus this now like experimental AI wave where everyone is just like trying new things. You don't know if it works yet, and how kind of risk averse or like leaning into trying new things within AML do you guys discuss in the boardroom? Because it is quite an interesting discussion to be had, like how much do we just try new things versus like sticking with what works, even though it might not be scalable, even though it does like needs more human, and that's not like the trend now with AI. It's all about like, oh, scalability. Like how are those things discussed in the boards that you're in? Will be interesting to hear. Olli, what's the discussion like?
It's all about the resources and where the company sees that the risks that the highest risk is, and the second highest, and perhaps the third highest, and then you put the resources on that. For example, there are some penetration test companies that are doing those. Those are usually extremely expensive. I just had a discussion that it costs like over 1 million euros to or to several million euros, depending on the scope, if you want to test your system towards the AI AML attacks, for example. So and not the smaller companies, the smaller institutions don't have necessarily the money, so they need to choose what to do. So it's just like risk. It's a risk management thing, and where to put the limited resources that you do have.
And I would say that we don't have an option. We need to dare to try new technology, because it's going to be impossible if we don't, because then everything is running too fast and we're not there. So we try things, and it also is the only way of being truly having a risk-based approach and having the human resources digging into the real cases or the high-risk cases, because I think we still need to have the human eye on those cases, but they are not that many. So let's keep the human resources for that, and having the technology helping out on sorting out which cases those are. So I think we don't have an option. We have to dare to try new things.
Also, I mean, but it is a very difficult subject, because on the board you are also like personal liable. So then being able to be, okay, let's just stick with what we know works versus like being brave and trying new things. It's quite an interesting kind of dynamic to sit in, at least I think so. Just thanks for sharing. But if you guys were to make any predictions, what do you think, where do you guys think the first kind of multi-million euro fine will happen at the board level for failed AML, for failed AML?
I would hope that it was not in the financial industry, to be honest, because I think there has been too soft supervision on other industries, like the ones that really have the opportunity to look into the customers and what they're doing, like accountant firms, auditors, lawyers. And at least in Sweden, I don't know how it is in other countries, the supervisory authorities of that, they have been extremely soft, and the fines are sometimes nothing. They just get a remark, and they are really facilitating money laundering.
Yeah, they are the professional service industry who help it who help it. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit the same in Norway, although, of course, I mean, when I started working with Strise, it was like nothing at all. And now the last couple of years, there's like been a gradual increase in the activity, but of course not to the level that banks have been under for so long. Olli, what do you think? What's your prediction? Do you think there will be one in the...
I just want to say it's not my prediction. It was just my my hope.
Yeah, not prediction.
I think my prediction is probably that it will hit somewhere with a very traditional financial institution that it has not been able to renew its systems, and also sitting on the old stack and sitting on the old systems and behaviors. So I think it will be hitting somewhere there, and that the persons there just don't see that we need to renew things and the way how we think.
How important have you guys been in the boards that you're at in pushing the firms to modernize their technology and doing new things? Like how far deep into the almost like the operational layer on like what softwares and systems to use and pushing for a change? Just curious to hear some stories.
In some boards, it has been extremely detailed, also on a board level, but in others not. And to come back to Olli's comment on prediction, I totally agree. I think that's also what's going to happen. And one also additional layer with the AMLR is the requirements on having data available and comprehensive, which many firms lack today. It's very scattered. So we have like the KYC here, and we have transaction monitoring there, and then we have the ODD somewhere else. It's not tied together, and now the requirements on keeping track on groups of customers, etc. I think that's super challenging. The data. So if you have old systems, it's not easy to tie those together.
That's true. Olli?
Yeah, pretty much thinking the same way. And also I would like to, perhaps I would like to see also in the boards, in different boards, some external experts, also including the ICT and technology experts, because sometimes I feel that the board members don't necessarily have the latest knowledge regarding the technology. It's younger persons usually that do have that. So sometimes, yes, that is also something that I would like to see a bit more. If not, they will become members of the board, but then you need to get the knowledge from the external experts inside to the board meeting. So that's one more thing to consider.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that will continue to evolve, especially now with like AI and evolving so fast, bringing that knowledge into the boardroom, and of course pairing it up with in-depth AML knowledge of the regulations. If not, I don't think that will be that good. But marrying those two together would be a good thing. But before we end this episode, we're going to dish out some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready? So I ask a question, you see the first thing comes to mind. Olli, you'll go first, Viveka second. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
What's the one piece of advice you'd give to any financial service board who wishes to get clued up on AML?
Good question. So first thing what pops in my mind is that you need to make sure that you understand the content, what is coming, and also that you understand the environment where you are doing your business in the future. And also I come back to the beginning that who do you want to have as your customers? Do you want to have as a customers the criminals or not?
Viveka?
I agree. The competence, get the competence, or at least have one or two on board level that understands these issues with some sort of in depth.
How ready are most boards for the upcoming AMLA changes?
I think not all of the boards are ready, I would say. Definitely not. Some are better than the others. But what I have been seeing is that I think it's on a good level.
It depends, but unfortunately I think it will also be like when DORA was to be implemented or GDPR, we will see it very much the last 4 to 6 months, then everyone will hurry a lot.
Yeah, the final sprint next spring
Yes,
towards summer.
exactly.
Yeah, I also think that. I think people have thought like, oh, July 2027 is like still far away, and then after New Year's we'll be like, oh, it's getting closer, and then suddenly you'll be after the winter like, okay, now we need to do something.
And when you start digging into it, there are so many details that have massive implications on the structure and the process, and you see that when you read like 2 sentences somewhere. So I think that's also gonna create a lot of and it's many things are still so unclear, and we don't have the guidelines and the RTS, so it's not easy.
No, I agree. Okay, what's the real world cost of not getting this right at board level, and not like AML fines or penalties?
You might lose your home business.
And you also may help criminals to commit very severe crimes, and I don't think anyone wants to do that.
No. All right, final question, yes or no? Is AML genuinely now a board level topic, or not compliance, not back office, but in the board?
Definitely yes. It's a board.
Yes. At every board meeting, I would say.
Oh, yeah, that's... that has probably have changed a lot since 10 years ago when you did the report to your board in 2016. I think that is a good thing, and we should end the episode on like, okay, that is a positive change that has happened in the last decade. That brings this spin of the laundry to an end. Olli and Viveka, thank you so much for joining me. If people want to find and connect with you, where can they do that?
LinkedIn.
Yes, LinkedIn. It's a good place.
And thanks to everyone who was tuning in and listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, check out the back catalog. We have more than 160 episodes, even though this is the first one on talking about AML in the board, but we have lots of other. Viveka has joined us for 2 previous ones, so please go back and check those out. Share the podcast on your social media channel, tell a colleague, maybe give us a 5-star rating, or you could share this episode with your board members. Got something you want us to make an episode about? Email us at laundry@Strise. Your host for this episode was me, Marit. Producer is Matthew. Editor is Dominic. And the video will be made by Lois. And the laundry is proudly produced by Strise. Manual film work ends now. Visit strise.ai for more information. See you next time.